to the cleanup, but most of the areas we went to, there were so many people that it was pretty well cleaned. We did a little bit in one section. I was like, hey, go check out the pawn shop, and so we did, but most of the stuff there wasn't great. But we did clean up a little bit of the back, so people needed to get in that way. There was less stuff. Yeah, it's actually really sweet and heartwarming that most of the areas were super cleaned up. The biggest thing now is to try to help with the food pantries, but the food pantries, the problem is there's no grocery stores open. Nothing is open right now, and we even tried to go out to the suburbs and we couldn't get anything. And turns out a couple weeks back when I'd gone to that Dollar Tree to pick up decorations, that was in the same strip mall as the first Target that burned, although it was actually an AutoZone. That was the first thing, but the Target that everybody looted because of, yeah, it's just weird. And today, 2 different semis drove onto the 94 and the 35 with all the protesters. Like, 2 semis were trying to rampage, and it's been ridiculous because protesters are peaceful. People are trying to freaking kill them, and the people are being shot by rubber bullets, one being on their lawns, even though they can be from curfew. They are allowed to be on their front porch, but no, the National Guard was shooting them, and it's ridiculous and scary still, but I need to move past. I need to move past my fear. I hope that I can build up the courage to go and protest. I know I will. Like, I know that'll be a thing. My folks will hate me for it because they'll be like, that's not safe, but it's, you know what? I need to do this because, like, I acknowledge my privilege, and I need to understand that that is something that means that I've not had the same sort of year in my life. I'm still a little annoyed at Emily because, yeah, we were having a discussion and some things were correct. Like, we were agreeing on. But she didn't really get why these have gone on for over a week. For a week, and it's like, well, there are other groups that are getting involved, and there's still not justice. There truly is there is not justice yet, and there needs to be. And there also needs to be a real organization, because they're running in a mutiny. The cops are in their own form of mutiny. They're not listening really to the mayor or the police chief. They're instead listening to their freaking union leader, and that is ridiculous, and it needs to be addressed fast, because I'm sorry, I'm not gonna put up, none of us are gonna put up with it. So it is the end of Monday. I should have done stuff for Ellie's birthday, and I should have worked more on the diversity essay that I have to write for Purdue, but I did actually protest today. First ever protest. Very exciting. And I'm excited to learn even more about how to be an ally, because this is something that needs to be addressed and fixed, and I need to amplify the voices of people of color and be a responsible and good ally. And I've been really having to remind myself my discomfort and fear should not outweigh the lives, and cannot outweigh the lives of people. Like, I really have to acknowledge that. Remind myself. Because white girl, grew up in the middle class, very privileged. I acknowledge that, but how do I move past just acknowledging that I have privilege? Again, with the gum, I know I edited my video yesterday, and I was like, or 2 days ago, and I was like, oh my god, the gum! I didn't mean to. I just decided now it was the time to record. So I should have done Aaliyah's gift, but I'm probably gonna do it tomorrow or later, because I'm just tired, because it was very hot and sunny, and I was tired. was only out there for a little over 2 hours, but it was really cool, and I want to do it again, and I am going to do it again. So yeah, that was my day really. There's not much else. So today is Tuesday. It was Blackout Tuesday. I didn't do the general thing that social media was doing of posting like the black box saying like hashtag Blackout Tuesday, because that seemed a little like fake woke. Like I can see it, but also the other thing is just like, don't post for a while, don't be self-congratulatory. I contemplated it, but it's not doing much in terms of like not proving, but like actually helping the community. It's just that thing of like, oh, like if you just post anything, you're like hashtag Black Lives Matter, and you're like not actually trying to help in the Black Lives Help movement or helping the community and helping amplify Black voices and really trying to help facilitate the discussion, not like domineering it, but having an actual conversation. I was also thinking, because of this, like, do I actually want to post this week's video? Like, that was my question. That's my question to myself, and I still don't know. I'm keeping these up because they're quite therapeutic in some ways, because like I started it when COVID first started up in classes, and I've kept it up, and I mean, this happened, like it's really showing real life, or it's documenting my life as things are really happening. In this whole discussion, my friends and I were talking about it, and we will say there's some self-righteousness in there. And in some of the ways, like the reason we went protesting initially, a portion of it was like, hey, we're like 40 years down the line. What do we want to tell our kids what we're doing? And I was like, I don't want to be saying I did nothing. That's no way to act. There's no way to, it's something that is like, I need to, like, there was a little bit of selfish on that, but then also the thing that kept me going, because that just gets you the initial push. One of the things I've been thinking about is my life and discomfort, discomfort is not worth other people's lives. Like, that's just not right. And understanding, like, even on a most basic level, like, everybody deserves respect. And if, like, I have to protest so, like, other people receive the same respect I've received my entire life, then, like, I will join in this protest, because it is not fair. I shouldn't be having so much more privilege than everybody else, when the only thing that's different is where my, like, most recent ancestors are from. But today was also Leah's birthday. So, besides conversations we were having today, which really all we did because it was thunderstorms, and so even trying to protest, it was dangerous, because the protest did actually, initially they weren't supposed to happen. The same group that I was with yesterday, they weren't supposed to protest initially today, but because some stuff had gone really, not bad, but like, there was some brute force being used on the protest after we'd left, not because, we'd left before because we saw we were suffering from heat exhaustion. But because of that, they were initially going, but then there was thunderstorms, so it was dangerous to have them out because they were the tallest things in the road. Of course, there was gonna have lightning, attract lightning, but besides that, it was Alay's birthday, so we did go out to lunch, and then I had to get more toilet paper, because right as all of the stores were closing, like, and all the, like, when the riots were initially happening, that was when we ran out of toilet paper, and I was like, so that was a thing. And then we just celebrated Leah's birthday and a portion of Maggie's birthday. We still have more to do for hers, but we gave her a gift in our card, and yeah. And that was a lot of it. Sophia and I had a little like nice prep rally in discussion. She just watched 13th. I need to watch it. But I pointed out an interesting thing, and I don't know, because a lot of people are saying how much they hate the United States, and I'm like, I think yes, in some things, like Trump and his tear gassing peaceful protesters because he wants to get a photo in front of an Episcopal church, and then the like bishop of that Episcopal cathedral is like, no, that is completely incorrect, and I'm like, yeah, I am. This is an incident where I am very proud to be born, raised, confirmed Episcopal, because we don't take people's crap really. It was a very welcoming church to the LGBTQIA plus community. Also, the whole thing with the Episcopal Church is it is the American version of the Church of England. So when America said screw you to England, they were like, shoot, we still believe all the same stuff, but we can't have the monarch as the head of the church, or it's counterintuitive. We'll make the Bishop of Canterbury. And then the fact that the Church of England is pretty much just like Henry VIII saying screw you to the Pope. It's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, we're used to saying screw you to authority figures. We like all the pomp and circumstance, but we say screw you to everything else. But also, I don't know, I had an interesting thing where at least this has become my own interpretation. And maybe it's just justifying things, but say for example, I still have a lot of respect for America, not for our president. I don't have any respect for him. But I think about it as I still love how America can come together as a community. Yeah, there are bad apples, but there are also some really good apples, and I see it when all of us tried to help with the cleanup, and there were so many people. There was so little work that needed to be done, but then there was the food pantries, and people are going out to protest. There is a community, and it is all over the nation. And so those 50 stars are that community that's there. And that's kind of my thing of like, yeah, America is really screwed up right now, but also there's so many people coming together. And that's kind of our thing is no matter, like, maybe we don't do it correctly, but the United States is really good at saying screw you to the status quo. We just don't, after we say screw you, we just don't follow through well. But that was my like thing. And maybe it's controversial. Maybe if this gets big, it'll bite me in the butt like 5 years from now, or less than that. And it's because I'm still very ignorant, and I acknowledge I have a lot more educating myself that I need to partake in. But that is something I was thinking about. So it is the end of Wednesday. We were gonna go clean up, but everything got cleaned up before we got there. So instead, we decided to go to one of the Cub Foods and pick up stuff for the Bethlehem Lutheran Church. They needed more donations. We were able to we bought a couple of produce, but then we also bought and more canned meats and whatnot, like protein. But we got things that are like vitamins. They needed like multivitamins, so we picked up some kid vitamins. We also picked up like razors and like medicine, like flu stuff, because they needed that too. We did that. That was a pretty expensive thing. It was the 4 of us, so we each spent about $25, which probably like, why are you saying this? But it's like, we're still college students. It's quite an expensive thing for us to do. Besides that, I was just watching a lot of videos from people of color and their perspectives and their stories, and listening and what they need a white person to do, what they need just like a white girl who I can go to some things, I can help. I'm trying to help in any way I can, and I'm also trying to educate myself or also work. Oh, it's a weird thing, and maybe it's just me trying to like back up and not take all the responsibility, but it's tiring, as they were talking about at the protest and everything, and it's like, this is what people of color deal with every day, and it's a lot, and I've never had to deal with that kind of worry before, but I'm ready to learn and also acknowledge that I'm gonna lose my privilege, but why have privilege when people are dying? Like, I can be uncomfortable, I can get used to the uncomfortable, it takes time. And maybe that's me just justifying it, and I can't be too slow, as like the Nina Simone song about Mississippi Goddamn. I re-listened to that today, and I was like, the comment about it everything being too slow, and it's very true. But so I decided I did watch a lot of things, and there was one video that I watched was just like, hey, focus on what inside of you is making you like want to do this, but also like why you haven't done stuff before, and what internal biases and racism do you have, which is a lot to think about. But Sophia and I did also watch the first episode of Killing Malcolm X, which was one of the ones that was recommended, and it was incredibly interesting, and also it was very like powerful to see like how his actions have influenced the current kind of, not everything, but like he's still very revered. I mean, he should be very revered, but his work and his comments are very big in protest day, and it was, some of the imaging was like images and videos of protests from the 2000s are very hard hitting today, and then also how poorly Malcolm X's assassination was handled, and one of the cops that was on there, it's like, yeah, this is the stuff that we need to address, because he was just like, well, in a court of law he was found guilty, referring to some of the poor men that were like arrested for his death who were not even there. And it was just like, yes, and people can be falsely convicted. It's a lot, but I'm trying to learn. I've had discussions with my friend who, she looks at this as a, people are trying, and there's also the fake woke, and I'm trying not to be fake woke. But it's a lot. There's a lot going. So today I went to another protest. We had a whole discussion as we were walking, because we walked initially to Government Plaza because that's where we thought one was, and there were so many National Guard and cops, and I did get nervous because even though I was using my First Amendment right, it still made me incredibly worried because they had guns, and I can't imagine how like people of color feel when they're being like racially profiled. I'm a white girl. I've got privilege. I've lived with privilege my entire life. I shouldn't, like, yeah. And it was like, yeah, it was a weird thing because like seeing them and just thinking about that, but then also like I've been to military bases all the time and it never bothered me. But also I think it was somewhat in context of things. Like right now we're like kind of at war, versus going onto a military base where you're like, yeah, of course you're gonna see like people with weapons. That's effectively part of their uniform. But we did go to the protest, a different protest, and it was interesting because we were mostly sitting down except for the very end. We were sitting down and listening, and I got to learn so many different people of color's experiences. Multiple black men and black women were talking or talked at this event and talked about their experiences and how their white friends have been like, oh, because you're black, we're gonna be arrested and all this stuff, and it's like, that's not a friend. And then one guy had his poster was, one black man's poster was like, am I next? And that was really powerful just to think about. And it was really interesting, and there was people from like who are Arab Americans, Asian Americans, and I know I need to talk to my parents. Part of the reason I haven't talked to them really is I don't call home a lot. I typically only call home when I'm really like depressed, and right now I'm still kind of depressed because I'm learning so much and realizing how much my privilege has allowed me to not deal with things. Yeah, we had there was word that there had been the National Guard, so that was going to show up, and that was scary. But my friends and I, we got closer to the front because we're white. We can protect our Black brothers and sisters and everyone of people, every person of color in the group. And I had a bit of a discussion with Aaliyah, and then we also, I also applied to Tulane today, so that was pretty cool. That was another exciting thing. But there's still a lot. Today was George Floyd's funeral, or memorial, and that was a lot. And the fact that there's still so much more, and I feel bad I'm not going to be able to go to the 10K walk tomorrow, because during that period of time is actually my grandfather's 90th. We're doing our call, and I do need to be there for that. This is family. And in this case, I'm not bringing up politics, which I know a lot of people would be like, you're being such a hypocrite, why aren't you having these discussions with your family? I don't want to do it at my grandfather, on a Zoom call with for my grandfather's 90th birthday, when he is suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's. He has some degenerative disease. They never did the protein test, but he is losing his memory. I do not want to have that discussion then. I will have the discussion later that day, but not while he is on the call. Sorry, that was the video cut out because I needed to delete older videos on my phone. But so what I was saying is I'm up for having those. I want to have those discussions with my family, just not while he's on the call. I want this to still be a happy time for him, but like if my aunt and uncle or my parents want to have this discussion, I am completely willing to have this discussion with them. And I want to have this discussion with them, just not with my grandfather on the phone call, because he doesn't need that. He's had a lot of medical issues, and like I said, he's losing his memory, and I don't want him to get upset because he's a mean person, kind of. That's been acknowledged. But maybe I'm wrong for giving a 90-year-old a pass, but he is in a nursing home. He can't do much harm. So today was my grandfather's birthday. Tomorrow will actually be the 76th anniversary of D-Day, which is kind of insane. Actually, yeah, no, it's not midnight yet. Not even close. And I'm a little bit intoxicated because I had a margarita and then a Red's Wicked Apple. Partially due to peer pressure, partially just, I don't even know why I'm being irresponsible. But I did actually tell my mother I've been at the protests, which is something actually kind of big for me because my parents are proper boomers. They were born in the 50s. And we had my grandfather's call today, and people are asking me about like what it's like being in Minneapolis right now. And with that one, like I said earlier, I a little bit knew I was going to skirt around it because my grandfather, and he was like, oh, all I see on the news is like burning, and I'm like, there's not just that. There is definitely not just that. I even called him out on that. But then I told my mother, and we had a conversation, and I'm not the best at it yet. I'm still learning. I'm still working on it, and she was telling me these other stories, and she's like, you're just stupid. Like, I'm not trying to talk about the instance, like, during the instances of when you possibly have been racially profiled. I mean, I have been profiled when I was at a store one time, and it was my friends and I, we all ended up storming a candle because we wanted to smell it at Bath and Body Works, and the person thought, like, oh, because we didn't have an exact answer, we were gonna, like, shoplift. And honestly, I will acknowledge, I thought it was more because, honestly, it was probably because we were all looked teenagers, because we were teenagers at the time. And I'm trying not to disqualify any people's actual experience of truly being racially profiled, not truly, but being racially profiled. But it was like, there's a much more systematic problem here. And I was upset with my hometown when I saw that parade of police that was on Facebook. And I'm like, I'm actually disgusted at it. Because there's so many publicity stunts that police are doing. But like I said, I myself tried to remove myself. I knew I was going to have issues because I am in Minneapolis compared to the others who are in other places. Although, actually, my aunt and uncle are in not far from Louisville, which today was actually Breonna Taylor's birthday. So it's not just my grandfather's birthday, it's also Breonna Taylor. So they're birthday buddies. Although sadly, she didn't even make it to 27 because she was shot and killed, while my grandfather was able to make it to 90. You can see the big difference. It was a white man made it to 90 while a black woman didn't even make it to 27. Besides that, we did watch Hello Privilege. This is Chelsea or something like that. It was Chelsea Handler's documentary, and it was interesting to watch, and it did provoke stuff from my conversation with my parents, or with my mother. I need to have more conversations, and this was just the first. I'm working on it, and I got a little boost from my sisters, who both of them are approving. I don't really, sorry, I had to move my arms. I don't talk about it a lot with my middle sister because she's in the military and I don't want to put her in a situation. Although I do know if she has orders that she deems unconstitutional, she theoretically doesn't have to follow them. But I don't want to put her in a situation where she's seen as involved with treason. Like, that's just something I don't want to have her in that situation. I care too much about my sister for that. But she still supports me on all this. And then the oldest definitely wants to, and she wished she had been more involved in the protest, but she's been doing other things. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she's been having these conversations with her mother for years. And then my mother's like, what is it with my brunette children? Like, okay, the middle one theoretically is now brunette. She's a towhead, so she was blonde when she was little. Now it's brunette, but what is it with my brunette children? Like, they were born brunette children, having these crazy ideas and not being super conservative. We're like, well, we understand human rights. But I will acknowledge it's sometimes hard having these conversations because my mother she was in San Francisco from the time she was from 1965-ish to 1969, to the fall of 1969. So, she has these very preconceived notions from her childhood and the news that was being portrayed. So, it's hard. Besides that, that's been my day. I did get Mexican food because for my mother's side, you always get Mexican on birthdays, and I got margaritas, and that's kind of where it started on me drinking. But I have been trying to have conversations and listen and trying to be a good ally. I'm still working on it. It's still a long process, and I'm probably making a lot of mistakes. But I'm trying to listen, trying to learn, and if people have any comments or can assist, but I'm not trying to do this on my own, but I'm trying to help. I'm very willing to listen. So it's the end of Saturday. I still need to edit my entire video by this week. It's as I'm trying to hop on my bed, but I still actually need to properly I did my laundry today and haven't put any of it away. I finally watched 13th, which was really good, and there's a lot I still need to think about. Besides that, I'm currently working on having to deal with both Sophia and Aaliyah having a disagreement over the thermostat, and it's being a pain in the ass, and I'm just like, I claim Switzerland on this. I really don't care. And Sophia's in this one camp, and Aaliyah's in a different camp, and I'm just like, oh my god, and it's literally a fight over 2 degrees. And the difference of having air off or the AC on, I'm just like, I can't deal with this. I don't want to be dragged in the middle of this, but I'm stuck here. Well, I'm already at like an information overload and trying to understand, like systematic racism. I'm trying to understand systematic racism, and not really understand as in like I'm not going to be able to understand the everyday struggles that Black people have, but understand that I don't understand things, but try to be more informed, to have more conversations. Like I said yesterday, I had my first talk with my folks, and my mother was cut off, was shut down because she didn't like the fact that she was being told she had privilege. Because from one of the things I'd watched today, the woman was discussing the fact that the second you say privilege, it makes it sound like you didn't work at all. And I know my parents did work hard. Like, I know they did, but they still had privilege. And I think I work hard. I did bust my ass off in school, but I do also have privilege. So that's something I've been thinking about. But having more of those conversations, because they need to happen. But I'm tired, which I know that's a lot. That's rich coming from a white girl, but I'm really trying to learn, and I'm coming from a place where I had really no knowledge, because I did shut myself off from political, which I know Black Lives Matter is not a political movement. It is it's people's actual lives. It's not political. People try to make it political, but it's not. But came from a house where I shut off from any of that stuff because I knew it was just going to end in a fight. But my mom, I think, is discouraging me from posting things because she's worried that it's going to be like, oh, employers. And I'm like, those employers don't like it. I don't want to work for them. So, don't care about that whole thing of like, I already have my social media. I have my Instagram that I have posted on on this one, but I've got other social media that I keep very private, and for good reason, because it was just the general thing of I kept my Facebook very private. That was her rule. I never changed that, but she still just, I don't think, likes how much I've been posting not politically, but about this and trying to amplify melanin voices.